Hey guys, welcome back today for another video. Today I wanted to talk about 8 things I'm glad I did in my 20s before I had a baby. So we all are moving on like different timelines at different paces. We're ready for different things. Our levels of expectation are like all different. So all that aside, this is just a list of things that looking back on that I'm glad I did before my son was born, because I think it helped prepare me a lot mentally for having a child. This isn't quite like a bucket list of things that you have to do or things you should do, but these are things that I am glad that I did and things that I feel more comfortable now as a mom having had done than I think if I hadn't had done these things, if that makes sense. So just to give you a little backstory, I had my son when I was 28, and in my head 28 was always the age I was gonna have my child. But yeah, I don't know, I had a miscarriage before that, and it just really solidified to me that I needed to follow like my intuition and wait a little longer. So maybe I'll talk about that more one day. Just, you know, a couple things that looking back I'm really glad that I did before my son was born. So let's just jump into them. So the first thing that I'm really glad I did in my 20s before my son was born, and I know it's a little cliche, is to travel. But that's mostly because I didn't get to travel a lot when I was a child, and I always knew that I really wanted to do that with my future children. So getting comfortable, traveling the world, you know, booking flights, being on planes, especially when I dealt with like really intense anxiety around it, was something that I am really glad that I got comfortable doing before my son was born, because we took him on 5 trips in his first year of life, which was 6 plane rides, and it all went super smoothly. And I know it definitely like won't all go that way in the future, but just like having that confidence from before made me more confident now, and it will make me more confident in the future. So I'm just really glad that I took the chances that I did to get really comfortable traveling, and not just like in America, but to places that I don't know the language, and places that were more difficult for me to navigate, and just things like that. So that's the first thing that I'm glad I did. So the second thing I'm really glad I did in my 20s before I had a baby was really build strong friendships and surround myself with really positive and supporting and loving and caring people. And also on the flip side of that, ending some toxic relationships that were really not good or healthy for me. Because I feel like the people you're surrounding yourself with are really setting the stage for how your child perceives other people. I mean, we as parents play big roles in that, but I think that our relationships also are big factors in that. And so it also made it easier when my son was born to really know that I had people around me I could rely on. So the third thing that I'm really glad I did in my 20s before my son was born was live small and really declutter my space. By living small, I mean that we lived in a very small apartment. It was like 600 square feet or something, and we lived there for like 3 years. And that saved us so much money in terms of rent, and also just not buying things that we didn't need to fill the space, I think was a huge important thing. And also like living in a smaller apartment than we could technically afford meant that we were able to save a ton of money, which was really helpful. And I also think that getting into this mindset of like there's enough to go around and there will be enough in the future is really important before you have a kid, because there are just so many things that kids like accumulate over time. They just accumulate so much stuff over time, and that really adds up in terms of money and space. And I think just learning that like once you're done with something that you can pass it on to someone else is a really important thing to know before you have a kid, because you're gonna end up with a lot of stuff. So number 4 is that I learned to ask for help, and I'm kind of the kind of person who doesn't really like to ask for help until I absolutely need it, and that's not really a good place to be when you have a child. Even if you're not, you know, doing it alone, like if you have childcare or a partner or grandparents or whatever around you, I think asking for help and realizing that it's okay to let other people help you is so important before you have a child. So the 5th thing I'm really glad I did in my 20s before I had a baby was to create low maintenance and passive income streams. So I'm self-employed. I've been self-employed for 7 years or something, I don't know. But anyway, I knew that I would be pretty much funding my own maternity leave, and it's not a huge deal in terms of making money during that time, but I wanted to be prepared financially to set myself up for success for the rest of the year, because my son was born in January. So that's kind of the time of the year that I usually spend on like heavily focused on growth initiatives in my business. and I wasn't really getting that time last year. So really kind of pivoting my business towards having more passive income streams was so helpful. So yeah, that's just something that I really am glad that I looked deeply into, and kind of just diving deep of how I could maximize what I'd already set up and changing that to bring in more money on a regular basis that didn't require me to be so hands-on in my business. So the sixth thing that I'm really glad I did before I had a baby was budget for healthcare expenses. So babies are like really expensive. There's definitely ways to make them cheaper, but in terms of healthcare especially, because you could have a completely normal regular pregnancy and it not really costs you that much out of pocket with insurance. But I ended up having a lot of complications with my pregnancy. We had like this really rare umbilical cord complication that just made things really touch and go, and I had to have a lot of appointments twice a week for a very long time, and that was really stressful, but it was also very expensive. All those appointments and ultrasounds and extra testing and all this blood work really added up. And so my husband and I knew ahead of time what we might have to pay out of pocket, so we had saved that up for the full year, which I'm really glad we did because we burned through it all. Yeah, I mean, it was worth it, but it's just very expensive, and my whole point is that you never really know what's gonna happen. I mean, we don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow, next year, whatever, but like pregnancy can be very unexpected, and we actually have a whole post of women sharing their unexpected expenses from pregnancy, so I'll leave that in the description below because it's really interesting. And my favorite one from that is like twins, but that's a whole other thing. But anyway, so yeah, I was just really glad that I budgeted for healthcare expenses and was able to save that money, because it just made the whole, like, the process of having like a complicated pregnancy it's very like overwhelming and mentally taxing and physically taxing, but having to worry about money on top of that would just be like, it would have been even worse, I think. So just knowing what you might have to pay out of pocket, like given the worst case scenario, is probably a good thing to know. Number 7 is communicating openly with my partner about parenting. So having a baby means that you are bringing this extra person into your relationship, which can kind of complicate things in a lot of ways because there are different parenting styles and there are a lot of issues that just arise that you can't really foresee. But I think having a lot of these conversations and getting on the same page and what we wanted things to look like post-baby really helped us to find the balance that was better for each of us. But that also meant that after our son was born, that we had a lot of conversations that were really open and honest about what we each really needed at the time and how we could each step up to help the other person. So I think having those conversations before really helped us to communicate better post-baby. There are just a lot of things that come up from like postpartum to like being sleep deprived to being what kind of childcare is best for your child, all those things. And I don't know, I just think that it was really important that we set the stage pre-baby so that we felt comfortable talking post-baby. And the 8th and final thing is learning to take things slow. So I'm a very like, let's get things done right now kind of person. I'm not very patient generally, but I learned that during my pregnancy, I needed to slow down because my main focus during that time was growing a healthy child. That's what I spent my time doing. And I think that while I was pregnant, I learned that I needed to hit pause and really take things slow. And I think that's something that carried into the postpartum period because, I mean, having a child is like really a fundamental shift in your lifestyle. Like, even though I really just expected having him to enrich our lives, which it has, it's also this interesting dynamic of things, you know, are different now. Like, there is a piece of my heart out in the world at all times, and that's kind of challenging to cope with mentally, I think, in some ways. But again, a whole nother topic for another video. But becoming a mom taught me that I was way more patient than I ever thought I was. And I think that having that period when I was pregnant to really just be like, it's okay to take things slow, it's okay if all this stuff doesn't get done, it's fine, it really helped me when my son was born and in this past year. And I think that it's really important as parents that we learn that we don't have to rush through things, and like toddlers do things very slowly, and I think that there's a lesson there. So anyway, that's it for me, the 8 things that I'm glad I did in my 20s before I had a baby. And I'd love to know if there's things that you're glad that you did before you had a baby, or I also have a list of things that I wish that I had done before I had a baby. So maybe that's another topic for another video. But if you like this, please like it and subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you in our next video. Bye!